Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here?
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Weather Weekly. It's been a while since we have been a part of this. We've had a few people off and taking a little bit of a break, but we're back to get back on this here. I'm your host, Marcus Bailey with Wish TV. We'll be joined here shortly with meteorologist Stephen Deanna as well, my co-host for today. Fun episode. We're going to recap on what's been a busy couple of weeks weather-wise and a historical or a little bit of a historical perspective on kind of the benchmark of winter weather storms here in Indiana and really across the Midwest. We're going to go back in the archives and hear from the lead meteorologist at the time, Stan Wood, covering the blizzard of 1978, and Stephen and myself will kind of go through that historical event and a whole lot more. That's next here on Weather Weekly. All right, we are back here. Weather Weekly. It is the week of February 1st. Like I said, it's been a few weeks. Had a real good last interview with meteorologist Mike Ryan at the National Weather Service, and we're going to talk more about kind of that forecast and how this winter's played out before we kind of get to the meat and potatoes of this. But first, I want to bring on my co-host for this evening. He is one of our on-staff meteorologists as well here at Wish TV. He actually started as an intern with us and graduated not that long ago, and we love to have him here. Stephen Deanna. Stephen, welcome.
Hey, Marcus. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this, first off. And second off, you got a great thing going with this podcast.
Appreciate
you
that.
You got some great guests coming up. I'm looking forward to all the different people with different stories. It's going to be amazing. I'm sure everyone else is looking forward to it, too. But all roads lead to summer, right? You know, yeah, like you said, I interned here about 3 years ago now. It's crazy.
Has
Time
it been
flies.
that long, really?
I can't believe it. I met you.
Now I feel old.
I remember
Thanks.
you're not too old. If you're able
No,
to
I am. No, I absolutely am.
Marcus just hit the climax of the hill, ladies and gentlemen. He's 40 years old.
Yep. Now I'm going over it.
Still looking great.
Appreciate that. Well, my hair looks good.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's shining every day.
You're darn right it is.
I almost met you, Marcus, 3 years ago up at Ball State. You came and visited NewsLink, Indiana,
Okay.
which is the main newscast area for Delaware County and surrounding counties, which was a great place to be at for my time being there from 2017.
Which is also where I got my start in television as well.
Yes, you did. I remember you talking about it. You were talking about you might still have some archive stuff.
There is archive video. Yes, there is.
That'd be
There's video, there's photo evidence. There's been a few interns that work here at Wish TV that are still currently at Ball State, and they have sent me pictures. They had titled it Baby Marcus, and I was in a suit jacket that was way too big for me. It was still a little wrinkly, too. It probably needed dry cleaned. So lots changed since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How much time has flown indeed, though, still. But I think it's amazing where we're at right now in this day and age with things like how I'm here already.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up on a year myself here, March 9th.
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly rewind in time with this. So basically, yes, I interned here from May 7th through like August 13th or something like that in 2018. I worked with you, Brad, Stephanie. I even got to meet Randy, which was quite a sight.
Sure.
I saw him.
Oh, Randy's quite a sight. That's right.
When I met him, it was incredible because first off, I mean, he's been doing this for so long.
Yep.
And second off, he's such a significant figure.
Oh yeah.
Not just in the meteorology world, but just culturally as well here in Indianapolis and just Central Indiana overall.
Yep.
Such a great guy. Really a great guy. I love him.
He is.
Love him. But learning from you guys and now, of course, working with Tara and Ashley, it's quite a new experience as well. Learning from what they've learned and then learning from that overall. I'm looking forward to Ashley coming back as well. But going through the internship really helped me build my character and on-air personality.
Yeah.
Helping build my green screen skills. It was amazing. I worked with you a lot, Marcus. You took over basically the weeknight shifts when Ken left. That was sad to see. It's still cool, though. I got to meet Kim Brewer. Kim Brewer is now doing Barron stuff, which is awesome. Of course, we have the system Barron, which not many people countrywide have.
Right.
Which is, I'm looking forward to seeing that get expanded.
Sure.
Barron's an amazing thing. I will tell you that.
I will say this. So Stephen is jumping on with me because, and you will find out here over the course of this episode, Stephen is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to, well, not only current events, which he'll be talking about what's happened in the past couple of weeks, because there's some significant events, but Stephen can jump on, throw a date out there, and he probably knows about a severe weather event that has happened. He also can do that with sports, ironically, as well. But since this is a weather podcast, we'll just keep it strictly to weather. So we'll talk a little bit more with Stephen. Stephen's going to be jumping on with me a lot on these podcasts over the coming weeks and months. So we're happy to have him on board. It's always good to have a Ball Stater on board, too. So
absolutely. And I love, working with the Ball State grad as well, with you, Marcus. You know, we are all stomping grounds at Ball State. Go Cards. I mean, hey.
Chirp.
Speaking of sports, though, real quick, I got to mention, though, hey, great to see our football team win that bowl game.
Wasn't that great?
It was awesome.
It was
I
nice.
loved it. I was ecstatic. And of course, 2 weeks before that, we knocked off the best Russian attack team in the entire country, Buffalo. So proud of them, though, for doing that.
They've come a long way since when I was in school in the early 2000s, and they had the nation's longest losing streak. So,
oh, man. What
so
gotta love it.
Right. All right.
Things have changed.
Yep. So, all right, Stephen. Busy week. Before we get to kind of the subject matter of today's podcast, we like to kind of recap what we missed while we were away we've been away for several weeks. But last couple of weeks, weather-wise, not just here in central Indiana, but around the country, have been pretty significant. So hit us up on some of the big events. Yeah,
Marcus, we've had, of course, and I want to say first, Mike Ryan from the National Weather Service, who you got to interview back at the end of November, which was awesome. Understanding what his background was and what he does and what he's good at and stuff. And one of the things that he's really good at is winter weather forecasting. And we just recently talked about this, Marcus. This forecast has been spot on. An active second half of the winter. Different things could be involved with it. It could be snowstorms. It could be just rain. Could be possibly severe weather. That will be talked about later as well. But we had a system move through back on January 25th. We were concerned with the potential because of the freezing rain aspect. I think we got lucky in that department looking back on that because of the rain that the freezing rain transitioning to just straight up rain, and then it was like a sleet snow combo. It just made the roads very treacherous for a little bit. I remember you saying you hit literally every preset type on your way to work.
In a 20-minute drive, I hit every single different type of precipitation type, from rain to sleet to snow to ice. It was incredible.
That is incredible indeed. I remember being in my backyard for a second, I'm thinking, this is quite cool. Personally for myself, I like seeing a combination of that snow sleet. It's quite unique. I mean, you hear the sound of sleet falling anyway. Sounds like maybe a little mini hail pellets. I mean, they're little frozen pellets that fall to the ground, like grapple as well. But luckily, though, we didn't have to deal with an icy situation overall. There was some snow to the north. And then we tracked this system that just recently came in. Man, some locations got buried under some snow. I mean, we're talking near a foot.
The weekend system,
Yeah, north central Indiana. Indianapolis, we officially got 4.2 inches.
Right.
3.6 of that roughly came from Saturday night.
Right.
Even some of you got to even hear thunder snow.
Thunder snow. That's right. I think I know you heard some on the east side of town.
Yes.
I believe we also had a report up in Hamilton County, too.
Yes. So there were a couple of instances of it. There was a report up there as well, so you're not wrong on that. You are correct. I mean, thunder snow's rare. We don't get that a whole heck of a lot. I remember the first time I was watching an Elite 8 matchup with college basketball, and of course March Madness is coming up. That's going to be exciting, but neither here nor there. I was watching the game, and then all of a sudden, we had this large system going on. We had like rain, snow, and all that. It was a messy weekend. I had to go home that weekend. My phone was acting up. All of a sudden, I hear what is the sound of thunder. I'm thinking, Dad, was that thunder snow? And then I could confirm that because some of my friends from Ball State, there's this conference that goes on every year in Iowa towards the end of March. They go out to in Ames, I believe.
Right, yes. Yep.
Or Ankeny. I meant Ankeny. My bad on that one. But they were coming back, and I think they saw it too, which was really, they were just rejuvenated. It was oh my goodness. Thunder snow's incredible.
It's
really
very rare. Although this system certainly had the everything in the cards for it, because you need some of the dynamics that you would typically get in a general thunderstorm in the spring. And, man, I think we had snowfall rates probably at least an inch an hour, if not more, probably up to 2 inches an hour in some locations. I mean, you mentioned it. We picked up just shy of 4 inches just from Saturday across at least Indy. I think some areas were probably a little bit higher. And,
for sure.
And it was only in, a 3 or 4 hour stretch before we kind of finally made the flip. So.
Exactly. And the weird thing, too, was that we were talking about a potential beginning part of it being a quick little bit of rain and then snow. We kind of just hit straight to
straight
snow.
out of snow, yep.
Just straight out of the gate. Yep. It was really heavy. I mean, it was interesting watching how the snow was like small, but it was coming down pretty heavily, and then it just gradually gets bigger
Silver
and bigger.
dollar snowflakes.
Oh,
They were big.
They were big.
Yeah.
Woo! Watching the wind direction change in my backyard, I mean, that snow just it just exponentially grew in rate per hour. Like you said, about 1 inch per hour. I mean, easily, for sure.
Oh, easily. All right, so this system left us by Sunday, but it ended up merging with another. So now there's this massive nor'easter that, as we're recording this on Groundhog's Day, is just kind of now tailing off. So you've got, there's some crazy numbers that came out of this storm.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll dive more into a little bit on their recent history with snow overall this winter. They've already been getting pounded.
Right, this isn't the first one they've had.
No, and for them, it's this time of the year, it's common for them to get hammered with snow. Nor'easters are common in the Northeast.
Right.
Really strong low pressure systems that not only bring lots of precip, but really high winds. I've seen wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour out here at times. It's you're talking. Usually, when we mention that, we're talking about major damaging winds,
right?
Some severe
that's
thunderstorms.
Hurricane force winds there.
Yes,
so
it's incredible.
Yeah,
but some of the totals that I found, I was able to find. I wanted to make sure I got this correct. I wanted to make sure these were accurate and stuff. So, as of 10:30 a.m. Tuesday, and I saw this on Twitter from the National Weather Service Eastern Region account. So locations like Montague, New Jersey, 33.2 inches. That's. Can you imagine that falling here?
30.
Oh my goodness, that would shut this whole city down for
easily.
a week at least. I mean, that would really hamper rescue efforts, recovery efforts. I mean, roads would be impassable. I mean, that would be a nightmare scenario for Indy. I mean, we've had our nightmare scenarios. We'll talk about one later in the show, of course, with the blizzard of 78, but also locations like Fishkill, New York, 25.5 inches, Danbury, Connecticut, 19 inches. These are just staggering numbers.
Right. Well, and then you mentioned the winds, so then obviously the drifts are
very
even
high.
worse. Yeah. So
which will reduce visibilities to less than a quarter mile at times. It's hazardous travel conditions.
Right.
Absolutely life-threatening stuff.
All right. So before we move on to the blizzard of 78, the one thing also I wanted you to hit up on, obviously we've hit on the winter weather, but there was tornadoes down in Alabama. Was that last week? Right?
Oh, yeah. That was, I will say, just watching that was a slight risk. That's a level 2 out of 5 on the severe scale.
Right.
And for those who don't know, the Storm Prediction Center, I'm going to define this really quickly. They issue many outlooks for different things, ranging from fire hazards to just lots of different things.
Heavy rain, flooding concerns, that kind of stuff, right.
One of the main things we look at severe weather. We're coming up on that season anyway. April through June is our main tornado season here in Indiana. For those who know, we've had our fair share of tornado events. Fultondale, Alabama, just north of Birmingham, just east of I-65.
Right.
There was a cell that started in Mississippi. I mean, we're talking like near Louisville, Mississippi. This was like over 200 miles southwest. It already started it. It had been tornado warned. It weakened, and then it hit more favorable conditions for severe weather. And then a tornado warning was issued. Saw James Spann live. I was watching James Spann, the great James Spann, at ABC 3340.
Yep.
10 minutes later, I'm about to go back into my room. I just got done using the bathroom, and I follow NWS Tornado on Twitter. Now, for those who follow them, they'll change the wording, a little wording in the image overall, saying observed or damaging. If it says damaging tornado, it's serious. That's a particularly dangerous situation type of warning. Those are rare. You don't want to see those.
Sure.
That's when they'll mention a confirmed large and dangerous tornado, and that's what's said in the warning. I'm thinking, oh no, this isn't good. And it went downhill really fast, Marcus. I mean, within 5 minutes, the tornado was very strong. You saw a notable debris signature. The winds in the storm were really strong. The velocity coupled was very well defined. I'm thinking, man, I hope people took shelter. I mean, it was 10:45 p.m. Central Time, and this is Central Time we're talking about. So it's been about 11:45 Eastern Time when this happened. Marcus sees some of the damage, like the Hampton. I think it was the Hampton Inn, like the entire wall being blown out.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That was kind of the one more iconic picture from that tornado that came through that I remember seeing on national news and on social media as well.
Oh man,
it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and then of course a lot of you saw the images and stuff of the following day from there. Just really sad to see that one fatality. Unfortunately, it was a 14-year-old who was actually sheltered. Trees, I'm telling you, trees are. It's just. When you get high winds,
that's a tough situation. You know,
it is. When you get those high winds, you never know. A tree's going to come down at any minute. You don't know if the tree's weak or not.
Well, and that's why you want to preach. And again, it's not. Is it perfect? No, but that's why you preach not only. And I've said this a lot to a lot of the schools that I go and talk to. Obviously, not recently, but it's not just about getting to the lowest level of your house.
Right.
It's what I always preach is, sometimes people will say get to the center of your house, and that can be all well and good, but it depends.
True.
But I always say put as many walls between you and the outside as possible.
That's
is that going to be 100%?
No, but it's a lot better, and that was more of an unfortunate circumstance.
Oh yeah,
that definitely
and
is.
That's tough to avoid.
Preaching the gospel there, Marcus. With flying debris, I don't hear this very often anymore, and I think that should be something that's preached overall about what I'm about to say. Flying debris is generally more dangerous than a tornado itself. You got objects flying through the air at well over 100 miles per hour. If we're talking like a violent tornado, they're going to be going over 200. So at that point, so it's like you got 2x4s just going
or anything for that matter. And anything's deadly at that point.
Oh, absolutely. It's sad. It was rated EF3, which on the Enhanced Virginia scale, tornadoes are rated from 0 to 5.
Right.
5's the highest you can get. Those are extremely rare. They're 0.01, or they're a tenth of 1% of all tornadoes. Extremely rare, but they're among the most deadly tornadoes overall. But in EF3, I think the max width was over half a mile. It was a large tornado.
Large, yep.
Very large, 900 yards. So 800 yards is pretty much half a mile. But overall, though, it's tornado season in Alabama, about November through April. That's peak tornado season, and it's really tough down there, especially because you can't see tornadoes in Dixie Alley.
And they are coming up, speaking of anniversaries, because we're talking about the blizzard of 78 here in a second. They're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the April 27th outbreak, correct?
Yeah, that was a real doozy. I mean, you're talking the worst tornado outbreak since the super outbreak, the original super outbreak. When all of our parents remember, most of our parents remember and whatnot, and their parents.
Yeah. That was, and we don't have to get into that right now. That can have its own episode coming up in April because that day. I remember it well, so we can spend some time on that. All right, let's go ahead and kind of move on to what we're going to talk about here, speaking of anniversaries. And it's interesting, and we're going to kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of what is still known here in not just Indiana. I've worked in Indiana, I've worked in Ohio, I've worked in Illinois. So I've been in all the surrounding states that were impacted by the 1978 blizzard, the blizzard of 78. And I'll say this. I know Steven kind of outed me on my age, but I just missed out on this. So it's just, a couple weeks ago.
Pre-MB time.
Right.
If you want to say 80 or BC.
Right.
MB.
So last week, would have been early last week, would have been the 43rd anniversary of the blizzard of 78.
Yes.
And I found this, when I started working at Wish TV, I'll be celebrating, I think I'm going into my 7th year now. And I grew up in Indiana. And so anybody that's around my age or older remembers Stan Wood. Stan Wood was the lead meteorologist for a long time, legendary forecaster here at Wish TV before he retired. He was the one that I remember early on, like obviously Randy and Ken, and there's a whole host of others that really had a huge influence,
of course,
when I got into high school and college. But the very first weatherman or meteorologist I remember seeing on television was Stan Wood, Stan the Weatherman. They had promos out for him all the time.
He was the guy back in the day.
So we have I looked through the archives here at Wish TV over several years. I just like watching old stuff. It just brings back a lot of memories. And there was a really good interview post-retirement for both Mike Ahern, another legend that worked here at Wish TV, and Stan Wood. Mike actually had a program that was it was called One-on-One with Mike. It was after he had retired from the anchor desk, and he brought in several guests. And one of his guests was Stan Wood. And they spent a good amount of time talking about the blizzard of 78, namely the coverage. And you have to keep in mind, and I think Stan and Mike hit on this interview I'm going to play for you, but this is 1978. And for those of you that are older and you remember that storm, the technology is not anywhere near to what it was today. And Stan was all over this, and you and I can discuss this a little bit when we come back, but Stan was all over this. And for him to be able to not only predict it, but predict it correctly, because this is like the storm of all storms, says a lot about how good Stan Wood was a meteorologist, and it really kind of paved the way for all of the meteorologists that have followed in his footsteps. And I think why Wish TV has been in such high regard for forecasting for so many years. So before we kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of it, let's go ahead and play this interview again. This was back in July of 2012, 101 with Mike Ahern and Stan Wood about the blizzard of 78.
We are back with Stan Wood, our special guest, our old friend from many years ago here at Wish TV, and it's so great to see you again, Stan.
Thank you, Mike.
Good to see you're doing so well. Let's talk about the blizzard of 78.
Oh, yes.
That was the one, I suppose that was a signature moment for this station, certainly for you. The day, as I recall, was January of 78, started out rather moderately, didn't it?
Yeah. Then they began to track a rather quickly forming storm, and based on what I had observed in Korea when we had a Manchurian blizzard that stopped the war for a couple of days, I could tell this was going to be a major event. So talking with Lee Giles, our news director, I told him, you probably want to make sure that you've got enough crew on hand in case this thing winds up the way I think it's going to. And ultimately, of course, it did.
You were among the first, or if the first, to see how big this was going to be.
I think so, yes. May I say this? We did beat the local television competition hands down.
We see some video right now of what it was like out there. That's a main street. I think it might be Meridian Street right there.
I believe you're right.
Incredible, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, we just stayed on the air all night. We never did that back in those days. You signed off and signed back out again. But we found some old Sherlock Holmes movies in our vaults. We ran those, and we kind of just interspersed that with broadcasts of the storm, how severe it was, and some precautions to take.
Yeah, and periodically Mayor Huddut would call to find out the latest, and we were pretty well giving him some advice on what it looked like it was going to do for the city. Ultimately, of course, he closed the city, that is, prohibited people from coming into the city, because I think it would have turned into a major catastrophe as far as people being stuck in their cars if they had tried to get to work that day.
He depended on any information from you to make that proclamation.
Pretty much so, yes.
Sure.
Yeah, and he
coming
was
on the air.
very grateful afterward for that, and we were quite proud.
Yeah, we don't know if he saved any lives that evening. That would be presumptuous to say, but I think what we did do that evening by staying on the air for 3 straight days and nights was we more or less held their hand out there. But a lot of people were isolated in rural areas who didn't really realize there was a world aside from that television set. And I don't know, I've heard people come up to me even lately and say, we got through the night because we realized there was something beyond that snowdrift.
Right, and we were there live showing them and telling them what was going on hour by hour, minute by minute, actually. May I bring in a funny little thing?
Sure.
You were finally able, I think, on the second or third night to drive to your home, which wasn't too far away. Of course, I lived way out in Hendricks County, so I was pretty well bedded down here for the duration. And the mark of a real friend is he will give you the shirt off his back. Mike literally did that. He went home, brought in some underwear and socks and some clean shirts for the weather guy.
A funny line too from that. Jim Scott, who was our assignment editor and still is here, he had a great line after 3 days of us existing in this small little cocoon. He said, "I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is we all get a change of clothing. The bad news is, Mike, you changed with Stan. Stan, you changed.
Well, we were sort of troglodytes, weren't we, living down here?
Yeah, but that went on for like 3 full days before we finally got the city
Yes, I
back
got
on its
home on
feet.
a Saturday, finally.
Yeah, yeah. And people still talk about that, don't they?
They
still,
do.
They mention that as kind of a watershed event for local television.
Well, and for the population at large as well, yes.
Yeah. You were not without technology back then, but of course there's been so much since then. What were the gadgets you had to work with, or, compared to what is out there today?
Well, of course, we were pretty well chained to the Weather Service teleprinter for a lot of our information. Then eventually we got a rickety old black and white printer that would give us a still picture of the satellites. Yeah. And then we got our first radar, and then graduated gradually to our Doppler radar. But it was pretty much fly by the seat of your pants early on.
Yeah. You have said often that you always felt a responsibility to the viewer, using computer graphics and radar, what was available to you, that the preparation time for a weather forecast, most people don't realize this, it's true today as it was true back then, the preparation time is what's important. The on-the-air time, that's a couple, 3 minutes, but it's when you work behind the scenes, that's what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
3 minutes on the air means that the prep probably took 3-4 hours to get ready for that little burst of 3 minutes on the air.
And you had those magnetic boards, as I recall, didn't you? When you just slap the numbers up on the board?
Yeah, and hope that they would stay. More than once I had the whole forecast just sort of melt down.
I remember that, yeah. Back with more conversation with Sandwood, right?
I just think it's a fascinating interview. Stan Wood is one of those people, I have to admit, that I really wish I could meet. I just never have had the opportunity to, but it goes right up there with, and you mentioned it earlier, and I've been very lucky to work with a Randy Ollis. Like Stan Wood, that's a name that goes right up there. But anyway, the stories that he tells about that day, him and Mike both, because, and we can get into this because obviously you and I both, Stephen, didn't live through this, but we've heard stories from our parents. And I think back to any time, and it still happens now, anytime we forecast a winter storm. It is not, my mom jumps in on with it, but it's not just her, it's that whole generation. And we get, I think of probably the biggest snow that we've had in recent memory in Indianapolis was the snowstorm during state finals weekend. And this would have been probably, 2 years ago, maybe. I think we got like 10 inches of snow here in Indianapolis. It's been tough to come by, right? I mean, we've had some pretty weak winters. And that was a big one. I mean, it was tough to travel and things were shut down in spots. But anytime we get a snow like that, you get that generation saying, that's not snow.
That's a baby event.
I'll tell you what snow was.
Oh, yeah.
It was the blizzard of 1978. So some hard numbers for you. You mentioned what they have in New England going on this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So the storm set record still in place today, and this is coming from the Weather Service, including the most snow in 1 month in Indianapolis. For the entire month of January, we had 30.6. Mm-hmm. And the most snow on the ground at 20 inches.
That's a lot of snow on the ground.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to just fathom. But so what made that significant, all right? One, first blizzard warning ever issued for the state of Indiana. That was issued at 3:45 in the afternoon on the date of January 25th. Heavy snow warning had been issued 12 hours earlier, which I don't think those even exist anymore.
No, I think that'd be snow squall warnings exist.
The snow squall, I would associate probably heavy snow warning is probably somewhere, and it probably got merged to winter storm warning many years ago.
Most likely.
Winds would approach 50 miles per hour or more by midnight and continue through the 27th. So that's 2 days.
That's a long time for that. That's significant.
Temperatures would plummet to a low of 0 during the storm. Wind chills approaching minus 50. On themselves remarkable, but the duration of heavy snow was significant. Snowfall lasted 31 hours at Indianapolis, and it wasn't just snowfall, it was significant snowfall. And would be followed by continued cold and high winds. This hampered recovery and relief efforts. leaving much of Indiana crippled for days. In all, 15.5 inches of snow would fall in Indianapolis, which combined with the snow already on the ground would bury the city under 20 inches of snow. In other areas, up to 3 feet of snow fell. Howling winds pushed drifts 20 to 25 feet up. Visibilities would remain at or below 1/4 of a mile for 25 hours. We can kind of get into the stories here, but I think the one that always resonates with me, well, there's actually two. And I've only, I guess technically, if you go by the actual definition of a blizzard, I've only lived through one. I don't know if you can even say that you've lived through.
I've technically been through one blizzard,
Okay.
and we'll talk more about that in a little
Right.
bit. But yeah, like you said, you've only been through technically.
I had the one and it was the Groundhog Day blizzard in 2009.
Oh, man.
And that was in Illinois. So I was still in Peoria, Illinois. And I want to say we were up. We didn't get quite 15.5. I want to say it was like around 13. We didn't have the duration of winds or snow, and we didn't have a lot of snow on the ground to that point. But that shut down the entire. So that probably is my only thing I can relate to the blizzard of 78. But what I remember is my mom telling me two things. One, they lived on a 2-story house on the east end of Muncie.
Okay.
And so it was on kind of a smaller hill, but it was on a hill nonetheless. All right. So the front door with steps and everything else, you're probably talking like 5 feet off of the street surface that it was on.
Okay.
She said that the only way they could get out of their house after it was all said and done is they had to go up to their second story window. And it was basically drifted up to the window. And even part of that window was drifted up too. So they literally could have walked down these drifts to the main road. That's how high those drifts were.
Oh, my.
That was the one main thing. And that was for everybody.
Yeah.
And this was up in Muncie. The other thing that she remembers distinctly about that was the National Guard being called out. She was like, there were legit Army vehicles. There's tanks that are rolling down the street because nobody else could go. And they had to use that for rescue efforts. It's just something we have never seen here in our lifetime.
Once things get out of control like that, I mean, you got to have assistance. It's really difficult to maneuver in something like that, but you got to go to the second story window.
Right.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard of something like that, but I'm sure there's people that have similar stories like that, but oh my, that's incredible.
Right.
That just goes to show how
Well, if you didn't live through it, if you didn't live through it, I mean, you've got the stories from,
True.
Your dad, my parents that lived through that, but it's hard to visualize.
It is
that much snow. It really is hard to visualize that much snow.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You're thinking, like, you're just doing, like, your hand gestures. You're just like, wait, that much? I'm like, oh, my. But I remember my dad has told me about this a few times over the years. My dad was going on 15 that year. He was 14 when this happened. So he basically, school got shut down for a week because of it. And he remembers after the blizzard, he would there was only one little path paved to this place called Walt's Supermarket. I don't know if you old timers remember this. This was at 16th and Emerson, Walt's Supermarket with an S. My dad would go there. They were trapped. They couldn't go anywhere. So basically, they stayed there and did the thing they only could do, work, and did what they could in a time of just uncertainty because you're dumped with you have 20 inches of snow first off surrounding the city. That's chaotic already by itself, and then you got the winds. I mean, on there too, the wind chill values. It was extremely dangerous. And I asked my dad if they lost power. He gave me a surprising answer. No, I'm surprised.
Yes, I that's the same thing with my family members.
Wow.
That wasn't something that, thank God for that.
True, because at that point,
50 below wind chills.
You got to stay warm
and you're
somehow.
locked in, right? I mean, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
so.
no, especially when you have all that snow around you.
Right.
My dad, though, in a situation like that, you're thinking lots of power outages are likely when it gets that cold, and it's easier for power lines to not snap and all that. It becomes much easier in a situation like that. But my dad walked to Walt's Supermarket, got bread and stuff for his family and stuff. My aunt worked at the credit bureau. She was about, I want to say she was 25. She just turned 25 at that point. She said that she doesn't recall if my grandfather took her to work or took the bus. I know she said she took the bus home. She said it was a long ride. I mean, of course, it was for sure, because it was slow. You couldn't. It was so hard to get through that snow, and it's hard to really, like we were just talking about. It's hard to go into an area and do relief efforts and stuff like that when you have like a foot or almost 2 feet of snow.
Right.
That's unfathomable.
How do you function through that?
How does one function through something like that? I mean, we've had those systems as well, something similar, but not on that level still.
No, and not really anywhere close. I mean, you and I were talking earlier today. I mean, blizzard warnings in themselves
are rare.
Whether they reach that when you look back and say, was that a true blizzard, yes or no, blizzard warnings in themselves are extremely rare. And not all of those blizzard warnings produce a blizzard. It's just possible that it creates blizzard conditions.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, I looked back on this, and I was for a while there, I was saying it was a false alarm because for some reason my brain's thinking, okay, it said it was issued on December 25th. I was thinking it was Christmas Day. Now, this was the last time Central Indiana.
What year?
This was 2012.
2012.
You're talking about a year.
So 9 years ago.
That set records with heat wave after heat wave.
That's right. That's right.
We're coming off the hottest year in a long time at this point.
Right.
And we had gotten a blizzard warning on it was issued on Christmas Day, but it was actually correct. It was actually issued for the next day. And usually this happens with winter storms. They'll issue the advisory, watch, or warning
a couple days in advance sometimes, right.
It's especially if it's significant.
Right.
This was one that happened all on December 26th. I'm thinking, it was a false alarm. I'll dump the next day. No, they issued it a day in advance, and it was from like 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. or something like that. The following day, and we had gotten 7.5 inches of snow. Winds were gusting to over 35 miles per hour. That's one of the minimum requirements for a blizzard warning. You need blowing wind. You need gusty winds of 35 miles per hour or more for hours on end. Blowing snow for 3 hours. I remember that because we had to shovel, and I was like thinking back to that recently. I'm like, or should I say 2 years ago? And I'm thinking, what day was that of the week that we had all that snow? Because I remember we were in the middle of a snowstorm, and truth be told, was a flat-out blizzard. So I've experienced a blizzard, but nothing on the granular level of 78, which that's like a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Well, and I think that's where maybe sometimes confusion can set in. And, I'm not going to argue with people, but, when they're like, that's not a blizzard. Well, technically, yes, it is. I understand that the benchmark is extremely high if you went through the blizzard of 78.
It's at the highest it can be.
Well, but the thing is, it's not all about the amount of snow sometimes.
Correct.
I mean, you are anticipating, but there's no minimum requirement in terms of inches on the ground that you end up with to classify as a blizzard. And I think that's sometimes where confusion can set in, because you can issue a blizzard warning and people, when it's all said and done, being like, that wasn't a blizzard. You know what I mean? So
right. That's a very, very good point.
Here's some significant things. I was just kind of going through on more of a Midwest perspective on this blizzard. So on January 26th, the third lowest atmospheric pressure recorded in the mainland United States, apart from a tropical system, occurred as this storm passed over Mount Clemens, Michigan. Barometer fell to 956 millibars.
Wow.
It was down to 960 when it passed over Detroit. So, I mean, that's a wound-up storm, right?
That's a very wound-up storm. And see, the thing is with those numbers, when do you ever hear those numbers with tropical systems?
No, not
with tropical storms and hurricanes.
With tropical systems. Yeah,
or should I say strong hurricanes? You don't hear those numbers. This
was essentially a snow hurricane, was what it was. I mean, seriously, it really was.
Snow cane.
Blizzard was worse in Ohio. It's history. 51 people died.
Oh, wow.
Over 5,000 members of the Ohio National Guard were called in to make numerous rescues. Police asked with four-wheel drive, and I've heard these stories in Indiana too. Police asked citizens with four-wheel drive vehicles or snowmobiles to transport doctors and nurses to the hospital. From the 26th to the 27th, the entire Ohio Turnpike, so that's in northern Ohio, was shut down for the first time ever. So the total effect on transportation in Ohio was described by Major General James C. Clem of the Ohio National Guard as comparable to a nuclear attack.
Wow.
Michigan Governor William Milliken declared a state of emergency and called out Michigan National Guard to aid stranded motorists and road crews. The Michigan State Police pronounced Traverse City, Michigan, unofficially closed. Traverse City, if you're not familiar, that's up in extreme northern Michigan. And warned area residents, it's basically off the lake there. Mm-hmm. They basically closed down the roads. Let's see what else they say. Upon arriving after a 45-minute walk in waist-deep snow from his home, this is at the Mayor, 10 city blocks away, he had to dig down a foot to put the key in the front door. Oh, my gosh. All right, and then Indiana.
That's crazy.
On day 2, just a half hour after the front blasted through, Indianapolis International Airport was closed during the whiteout conditions. At 3 a.m., the blizzard produced peak winds of 55 miles per hour. We mentioned the temperatures near zero in the morning, wind chills at 5 below. Governor Otis R., also known as Doc Bowen, declared a snow emergency for the entire state the morning of the 26th. Snow drifts of 10 to 20 feet made travel impossible. Stranding an Amtrak train and thousands of vehicles on interstates. On the 26th, Indiana State Police considered the Indiana roads closed. I found this interesting here. Classes at The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, the University of Notre Dame up in South Bend, canceled for the first time in history. It's the first time they were ever closed.
I mean, when you got something like that happening, how are you going to get to class safely?
Canceled the first time in the history of those universities. At Purdue, in West Lafayette, 25 inches of snow on the ground. Ooh. For the third time in history, they closed down. And at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, the first time since the assassination of John F. Kennedy. An inch or more, usually much more of snow, remained on the ground of this area, Midwest, for nearly 2 months. So that took you all the way into March.
That's a long time for snow to be on the ground continuously.
And here you go. In Indiana, schools were closed for as much as 3 weeks, and the historic state basketball tournament would have to be postponed for 17 days.
Whew.
Yeah. So that's...
really set things back.
Well, it did. And you know, you wonder, I don't know, with that much snow, the technology is different now.
Of course.
I can't compare the plows of the late 70s to where we're at in 2021. When you're talking that much snow, and then it gets that cold, you know, the one thing that we do know is that there is a certain temperature that chemicals are just not going to do it for you.
Correct.
And 0 is definitely one of those numbers.
Oh, yeah.
If you're at 0, chemicals probably aren't going to work.
Right.
And if you're getting that rate of snow, the plows aren't going to be able to keep up either. I don't know if we would be any better off 43 years later as we were in 1978 with that kind of snow. I just don't think things have really changed that much. The one thing I'd like to think, and again, in that interview with Stan knew at least a couple of days out that this was coming, which I think is just incredible.
It is.
That late in the game, look, there's no internet.
Yeah, we're talking 78.
Right. You know, so he's getting his weather maps from, weather service stuff. To be able to know at least a couple days in advance, being like, this is something, and he had a gut intuition about it and was able to go with it. And he said, look, this put us on the map because we were the first ones to jump on it. Says a lot.
It does.
But you'd like to think that at least, if anything, we could be a little more prepared with the technology in that sense in terms of forecasting.
Of course.
But I think, how many times have we been on the internet and we see 7, 8, 9 days out that it's going to advertise a big snow, and then it never comes to fruition? The reason why is 20 inches of snow. Well, 15. 15 is a lot. It is a lot, Oh,
yeah.
And I don't think people kind of really understand that, because there's times, where you think about this weekend. Mm-hmm. Was it, 3.6-ish on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that was enough to do damage, right?
Yeah.
It closed down some interstates briefly because of the rate of snow and that kind of stuff. And so I think it's hard to just comprehend how much a foot of snow is.
Oh, it's
or
way
a foot
more.
and a half, right? I mean, it's
it's
a
another
lot.
level.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking another dimension when you're talking about a foot of snow.
Right.
That's going to do so much more on a more widespread level, especially if it's widespread coverage like the Blizzard 78, where you're talking in Ohio, like a nuclear attack.
Right.
Like, that's incredible. I don't know if there's an adjective event yet you could describe that.
Well, and that's the thing about winter systems that's different than, I mean, I guess you can kind of relate hurricanes a little bit in the same sense of how they affect areas spatially. And what I mean by that is thunderstorms and severe weather are going to impact parts of towns, whereas winter weather is going to impact state or states, plural. And, case in point, I mentioned Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana that were the 3 states that were mainly impacted by this blizzard. So it wasn't like, this one town was complete chaos and utter destruction. It was the entire state, and it was the entire region. So there was literally nowhere to go that you could find any relief until you get down to Kentucky or parts of Illinois or something like that.
Exactly. And it just goes to show how incredible this stuff can be. Like you just said, thunderstorms, even tornadoes are little tiny parts of counties. Even, of course, long tract ones. Yeah, of course, we're talking counties by that point. But it's not the, whole state. There's rare times tornadoes do cross an entire state. That's, mind-boggling in itself, too. But winter storms cause a lot of destruction, too. Economical loss can be high with these too. When we think of tornadoes, how those can be really costly. I think sometimes we seem to forget how costly winter storms can be.
Absolutely.
We're talking about damage to power lines or
power grid,
crops.
Ice storms. Absolutely.
Yeah, farmers having crop issues and stuff like that. It's really, when you really think about it, there's a lot more to it than we think. I don't think we really think about that because we're thinking, because my area, I got to shovel this and whatnot. And that's a part too. Don't get me wrong. You really should always stay tuned to your local forecast when there's something like this incoming, especially you're talking about this cold we're talking about coming in this weekend. We're talking like the coldest era 2 years possibly.
Yeah.
Still some specifics need to be ironed out, but it's looking like there's a likely chance we're going to get really cold. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into it for sure.
All right. Well, we don't want to go too long, but again, I'd love to hear some of you, if you're older and you remember the Blizzard of 78, I'd love to hear just kind of your memories. We kind of post stuff about it all the time, when we come up on the anniversary, but here we are 43 years later. And, there really hasn't been a storm that's even come close to that. So I'd love to hear your stories on kind of like how you went through it. It always varies. There's people that don't look real fondly at it, but a lot of the stories I hear, people look, it's like we did what we could. School was shut down, jobs were shut down, you couldn't drive anywhere, you were looking after your neighbor, because everybody was stuck. So
it's like what we were last year with quarantine, but of course that's a different thing. But
yeah, I mean, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of kids back then, I'm sure, were just exhilarated to not have school.
And here's the other thing too: if we had a situation like that, schools are better equipped.
Yes.
That they can go to e-learning, and so you don't have to go to school for an extra 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's
because you're going to be out or whatever, right? So
true, very true.
Okay, we're gonna wrap things up here in just a bit. Stay with us. All right, that puts the wraps up on another podcast. Thanks for bearing with us here on this kind of updated schedule, and we're going to try to get a little more routine with this. Certainly once we get back into March, we'll be going back on more of a weekly schedule, and we get fully staffed here in the weather department as well. My thanks to Steve Indiana jumping on with me here to co-host. He'll be back again here soon. And stay tuned for our next episode. Over the next couple of weeks, we will have meteorologist Kaylee Pluchel, also a former intern here at Wish TV. She is now in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and she went through that significant derecho event that happened late last spring and early last summer. And so we're going to hear from, her perspective on how that whole setup was, from forecasting to in the event to cleanup. She's going to have a lot to say, so we're looking forward to hearing from her. And thank you for tuning in here for this episode of Weather Weekly. You can always find much more on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow at Marcus Bailey Weather, always on wishtv.com. And, of course, stay tuned here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.